What's going on, everybody? Rob Ferretti here, and let's talk about the thing that was in the news. I was just driving out in Colorado, Utah, Arizona on adventure drives. We had a phenomenal time, and there's going to be another giveaway. Sam Roxon, who was from Canada, won this one. He had a great time on the trip, actually driving this exact car, which was a C8 convertible, and I saw that guy ripping around, living the time of his life. So that's something that you should do when we do our Germany trip. We got a Germany trip coming up, going to the Nürburgring, going over to the Porsche Museum, going to Strasbourg, going to Oktoberfest in Munich. It's going to be a great time to do the same thing. There's no link yet, but there will be a link, so something to look forward to. But let's talk about the 2025 Corvette ZR1. This is something that's been hotly anticipated. It was something that people thought was going to be a hybrid, and they launched it, and I was pleasantly surprised. If it was a hybrid, I wasn't interested, but it's not, so your boy's going to get one. And this is where you're like, well, are you going to get one for the rental company or you get one for yourself? I don't know, but I'm going to get one and rent it. I'm going to drive it myself first, see if it's a little too crazy for rental, which it may be, it may not be. You're talking over 1,000 horsepower and over 800 foot-pounds of torque in this car with twin turbos. That's effectively what it is. And some stats that got me that I was like, wow, it's a lot of horsepower, right? Hey, here are the keys. New Balance guy, jump in there and try to point it straight. Like, there's probably more technology in it to help keep it on the road, because I thought like a 700 horsepower car is a lot for people to handle. 1,100 horsepower or 1,000 horsepower on a turbo car, that's a lot of car. That is a tremendous amount of car. And yeah, it's got all this downforce, but you have to be going fast enough to use the downforce. So the biggest problem people get into with fast cars is they carry more speed than they would normally carry through a situation, and there's not enough brakes. So I'm sure there's going to be bigger brakes, but this thing's already got, not this one, but the Z06 already has carbon ceramics on it. I'm excited to see this. And the reason I say I'm going to get one is because if it doesn't rent, I'll probably just keep it. You know, I said I have a Z06 on order. I have two Z06s on order. I've got one for the rental company, one for myself. I'm going to change one of those orders over to a ZR1. So I'm going to have one ZR1 and one Z06. The Z06 I like, right? Like the only surprise that I had when I heard the ZR1 was like 3,700 pounds. I'm like, how'd they go from like 32 to 3,700? And I'm thinking like my Corvette, right? My Corvette was like 3,200 pounds or 3,300 pounds way back in the 90s. Now we've got fancier materials, lighter weight materials. I thought that we would move in the opposite direction and always hover around like 3,200 pounds. I was wrong. This car itself, this is a convertible, it's a little heavier, but the C8 just regular Targa top is 3,500 pounds, 3,550. And I'm like, well, that's a lot. So is the Z06. And I'm like, I didn't think that was a lot. I didn't think they were that heavy, because I knew there was going to be some additional weight. If you just take the Z06, which it's pretty much the same engine, you're going to have the Z06 engine with turbos. Turbos add more weight. Maybe there's a little bit bigger brakes, more weight. Maybe a little bit more tire, more weight. So you're adding that. That makes a lot more sense. Even with the turbos, you're going to need more cooling. I thought, like, I think of 3,800 pounds, 3,700 pounds for a dry weight. I'm thinking that like hybrid batteries and stuff like that. There's none of that in the Z06. So, or even the ZR1. So I'm curious where all this additional weight comes from, because when I'm thinking, I'm like, all right, well, maybe they've got 11 catalytic converters in it for emissions. I could pull those things out and it's going to sound awesome. The only thing that you're going to be missing in this ZR1, because I do think it looks very cool, there's more accents. It's the only car that looks sort of different than a base Corvette, but you're going to need the wing, and you're going to need the hood, obviously, is what really makes it. The hood and the wing really accentuate this car, that make it stand out, and it's like, that is not your mom's Corvette. Because the problem I've always had with Corvettes is there's so many of them. So I'm going to get one, I'm going to rent it out, and your question is going to be like, how much is it going to cost to rent? And that is an excellent question. And I don't know. Now, it really depends on what it costs, because this car is based off of this chassis, right? We have other cars out there, the GTD Mustang, right? That's $350,000. Why would somebody spend $350,000 in a Mustang? Why would they charge $350,000 for a Mustang? Well, it's not really a Mustang, right? It's not a GT500. It's a badass car. This is like, it looks like a Mustang, but it's so far different than a Mustang. The ZR1 is sort of just a trim package on a C8 Z06. So it's just an additional trim package. So I think it's going to be an incremental cost above what a Z06 would be. I don't think it's going to be tremendous. I think it's probably going to be about a 165, maybe 175 car optioned. I think it's going to be a base price of 130. And then when you start adding any options on it, you're going to be right around 170, 165, which is about my Z06 is spec'd at 150. So, and that's with the Z07 package. So at 170, I can price it out. And that'll probably be about $1,250 a day. So I may be the only one crazy enough to rent out the ZR1, but I'm going to only rent it out after I drive it and say, you know what? People aren't going to crash it. Now, I don't care if you crash my rental cars, right? Like, if you crash a rental car, I'll go get another one. This is not a limited edition car like my NSX. Like, that's just, there's not a lot of them out there anymore. So I wouldn't rent that, because if somebody crashes it, it's significantly harder to replace something that there are only 70 of. And I'm talking about an 04 Long Beach Blue Pearl or whatever, like the fixed headlight blue. There's not a lot of them. But a ZR1, I'll just go get another one. Chevy has said, and I think this is accurate, they're going to make as many as people want, right? And that's a business, right? A business is make something people want and then sell as many as you can. And that's smart. And they've done that with the C8s, because these cars are not as special anymore. You go on Turo, they're all over the place. But you're going to have the initial demand for the ZR1, I think, because it's the newest, hottest car. Like, these things were incredibly hot when they first came out as far as rentals go. The Cybertruck, that thing is ugly. It's terrible. Like, why you would want a Cybertruck, but you look on any Turo platform, there's 100 of them out there. And that's why I'm not renting them, because I don't want to compete with Turo. I don't want to play in the mud with that. But the ZR1, that's a different story. That, I think, is a performance car. I could put it on our dream car tours if it's got enough electronical aids to keep that thing straight and allow people to drive it without getting crazy and requiring actual driving talent to be able to operate it without crashing it. Like a Viper. Like, a Viper is not a very good rental car because it actually requires skill to not crash it. You can't say the same about the ZR1, because the ZR1, I don't know what's in it yet, but if it's got 1,100 horsepower and no electrical aids to help keep that thing straight, that's a much different car. But the hybrid cars, they're generally better at, let's just call it torque vectoring and putting the power to the ground without spinning the tires. That's something you're not really going to get with a traditional turbo setup where the boost just hits and they describe it on the Chevy website as like being launched from an aircraft carrier. Good visual, right? I want to do it. I want to try it. You want to try it. And I probably will be the only one renting these. And that's a good thing. Like, you may think like, well, Chevy doesn't want you renting the cars. My Z06 was a great rental car. There's still people that call up for the Z06. The only problem was it wasn't reliable. The engine went out on it. That's why I sold it and ordered another one. But Chevy loves it, because a lot of people that wanted to rent the Z06 did so because they wanted, hey, I want to buy one, but I want to drive it first. And I'm like, that's why it makes a decent rental car, a good rental car, because people are intrigued. If you have a 1,000 horsepower like performance car that looks different than a base Corvette, and people look and be like, that's a ZR1, that's appealing. Now, if they drive it and say this thing is nuts, and the only way they're going to drive it is from somebody like me renting it to them, that's good for the brand. That's good for Chevrolet. So I'm going to order one. I'm going to order it in white. It's going to look pretty cool. It's got enough distinction around it that it's different enough. It's attractive enough. I hope the sound is there. A turbo car, even though my C5 is turbo now, a turbo car does muffle the exhaust sounds a little bit, so there's always going to be demand for the Z06. But the ZR1 at almost twice the horsepower of a Z06 is pretty bonkers. And I'm excited to get some seat time. And if Chevrolet is watching this, which they're probably not, because they've got so many people that have already done ZR1 videos last week, I would love a test drive. I'm sure you got some demo cars. You can invite me out to one of those demo days. I'm going to be up at Velocity Invitational. Who knows if you want to send one out there? I'm sure everybody would be interested in getting some seat time in that. All right, so if you're interested in renting one, I will have one. I don't know when they're going to be out. I don't know what the price is going to be. Those are my predictions. But when you want to drive one, you're going to come to this guy, and he's going to hook you up. Rob Ferretti, thank you for watching. Chevy, thank you for making a cool car, because we're running out of those and running out of runway to continue to make those. So as long as we're ending with a bang, everybody's happy.